with that, I'm going to do a brief introduction of our speaker. His name is Carl Morrison. I've actually heard him speak before about this topic. It's interesting, it's insightful. I think you guys are going to get a lot out of it, and I think it's going to be a great presentation. He is a certified paralegal and paralegal manager. He's been practicing in this industry for over 2 decades. He hosts an award-winning podcast, which I've actually listened to. It's great. So keep doing what you're doing there, because that's a great asset too. He is a published author for magazines. He's also contributed to educational textbooks. He is a wealth of knowledge. So with that, Carl, I'm going to turn it over to you. Again, if you guys have questions, use Q&A and let's get started.
Fantastic, Lori. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak on this. This topic is kind of near and dear to my heart. I'm a paralegal educator, but also you can see on this first slide what I call my alphabet soup. So it's all my certifications, which are all paralegal certifications. And we're going to talk about sort of the 30,000 foot view about certifications, the importance of having it, so on and so forth. So let's just dive right into it. So, oops, there we go. So certified paralegals, breaking news, certified paralegals are truly a hot commodity in today's legal industry. So we're going to talk more about what it means to become a certified paralegal. So takeaways, what you're going to take away from today's presentation. Understanding of the lingo. Just some of the definitions that I like to say will help you be able to even explain to others about being a certified paralegal. Having respect for what it means to have a nationally recognized certification under your belt, getting out there, taking the test, knowing what is going to be expected of you once you have your certification. The different types of paralegal certifications that are available. We're going to talk about national versus state. Your own state, Illinois, also has a certification. We'll briefly talk about that as well. The knowledge for you paralegals that are attending this about the benefits of being certified, but if there are any attorneys that are attending today's or listening at a future date, the benefits of hiring a certified paralegal. Why should you get a certified paralegal versus a non-certified paralegal? And then for all of us to really be champions of certification, getting out there. We'll talk about it in a minute, but certification is voluntary. It's not mandatory. You don't have to have it. But you need to be a champion for certification, just like me, getting out and sharing the message. So what's in a name? Let's start from the very beginning. So I understand there may be some students in attendance. So you probably may already know really what a paralegal is. Well, what is the paralegal? Well, recently, February of this year, the American Bar Association, who has had and defined what a paralegal is since the 80s, recently changed the definition, but they made one minor change. Previously, it used to say a paralegal or legal assistant is a person qualified by education, training, or experience, so on and so forth. They changed. They dropped the term legal assistant because it's no longer synonymous with being a paralegal. And the reason why is a lot of law firms and in-house corporate legal departments look at and have defined a legal assistant as an individual that is doing non-substantive work that otherwise wouldn't necessarily be done by an attorney, more maybe clerical in nature. Not a lot of research, not a lot of the substantive work that a paralegal does. And so the ABA decided that it was better to drop legal assistant and leave paralegal as the definition. So it's a paralegal is a person qualified by education, training, or experience, and employed by a lawyer, and performs specifically delegated substantive legal work for which a lawyer is ultimately responsible. And so why is that important to know? You're going, well, why do I care that they dropped legal assistant from the definition? Well, it's important to know for the simple fact of seeing jobs that are out there, and if a potential job is identified as a legal assistant position, and you may be a paralegal and you may be having your certification, you may not want to necessarily apply for that job because that may not be for you. having an understanding that a paralegal is one that does substantive legal work for which the lawyer is responsible is ultimately what we need to truly understand. So taking the term certification, well, what does certification mean? Well, God bless the American Bar Association. They too also defined what certification means. Certification is a process by which a non-governmental agency or association, they give recognition to an individual like myself or you who's met certain predetermined qualifications that have been specified by the agency. It typically has an examination component to it in order to be certified. And though what you are being tested over is drawn up by that sponsoring association. So I've given you the link as well to the ABA definition of paralegal certification, so you truly can say, this is what certified means. Take certification definition, add it to paralegal definition, and you come up with a certified paralegal. So this is something that it gets me every time, and it gets my goat, as my Midwest Southern mindset is. The difference between certificated or certificate versus certified. It gets confused all the time. So I broke this down to help you guys understand what is the true difference. Okay, so first, let's look at certificated or certificate. It's assessment based, meaning that you're going through a program. It may be your paralegal program that you may be attending right now or have attended in the past. It's assessment based. Means you got to go through a series of different classes. So I got to take intro to law, and then I got to take civil procedure 1 and civil procedure 2 and law office management. I got to go through and I got to take those tests respective to that particular class. I got to pass that class in order to go to the next one. So you're going through a series of different types of courses in order to ultimately get your certificate. So you can say, if you completely, successfully go through a program at a local technical college, community college, university that has a certificate paralegal program, you can say, I have my certificate in paralegal studies. You cannot say, I am certified, because you haven't been certified. The difference, so let's look at certified. Certified is, and we just talked about what the definition is of a certification. To be certified means I sat for a specific exam. It's typically through an agency or association. I have to meet certain requirements to even be eligible to sit for the exam. Then I got to pass this specific exam. There are requirements in order for me to maintain my certification. So with a certificate through a program, once I graduate, that's it. Done, I'm out. Certified means I have to, in order to maintain that certification, I'm going to have to do something. We'll talk about that in a second, meaning like attending continuing legal education sessions in order to maintain my certification. If I don't maintain it, I lose it. And I have to go all over and do it all over again. This is where you can say, I am a certified paralegal because I have met the requirements to sit for the exam. I sat for the exam. I passed it based on what the passing rate was supposed to be to get it. I'm maintaining my certification. I can now say I'm a certified paralegal. Now, here's the difference. Certification is voluntary. Well, so is going and getting your degree or even a certificate paralegal program. It's voluntary, but a lot of employers are looking for a minimum of a certificate. They want you to have gone through some sort of knowledge, training, education in order to even apply for the job. Certification, I don't have to have it. You don't have to have it in order to work as a paralegal. In any of our 50 states in the United States, it's voluntary. I don't have to have it in order to work. So let's get into the meat and potatoes here. First, before I get into the meat and potatoes, there's one thing that another that gets my goat every time. is someone that says, I am an ABA certified paralegal. If you are saying that, please stop right this second. Take it off your signature block. Do not say it. What the American Bar Association does, and I'm part of the standing committee for paralegals, the commission, there are a lot of different paralegal programs out there that go through a rigorous, not training, but rigorous program in order to have their actual paralegal program be ABA approved. Approved, you notice I said approved, meaning that the ABA comes in, and I'm part of the site team. I'll go to a school with another site team member, and we will look at their entire paralegal program, and we will make sure that they are in compliance with the ABA guidelines in order to maintain their ABA approval. So if you went to a program, a paralegal program that was ABA approved, congratulations, that's fantastic, because that means your program is meeting the very rigorous standards that the ABA has set for paralegal programs that go through the ABA approval. But you get your diploma, your degree from an ABA approved program, you cannot say, I am ABA certified. I'm an ABA certified paralegal, because there is no such thing as an ABA certified paralegal. Even the American Bar Association, and I give you the link here, says, quote, the American Bar Association, and I give emphasis here, does not certify paralegals. Paralegals may not represent themselves as ABA certified paralegals. You can't do it. So if you're doing it now, stop, change that immediately, because you can't say that you're ABA certified, because the ABA does not certify paralegals. All right, here we go. This is the meat and potatoes. This is my fun part of the presentation. Why should I be certified? Well, why should you be certified? Carl, I look and you've got all these letters behind your name. Why did you do all that? A, I'm crazy, but B, it is because I see the benefit. And one of the benefits, and I give you some sources of data here to help you see the benefit of being certified, being a certified paralegal. NALA always does every couple of years what they call the utilization and compensation survey. And this one was based over 1,000 different respondents that responded to the survey. And one of the questions they asked was, do you see certification as a tool for professional growth? And the survey respondents said 60% of them said, hey, I sought out a CP, the certified paralegal, through NALA, we'll talk about that, or the ACP through NALA, or a state certification, and I saw it as a tool for professional growth. So paralegals recognize that having a certification sets you apart. Having a certification, same source of data there from the NALA survey, but also the US Bureau of Labor and Statistics for last year. Having a certification afforded certain paralegals, and I say certain because it's not every certified paralegal, but certain paralegals saw an average salary of $62,642. That's nationwide, so it's going to fluctuate based on your market where you're at. But the US Bureau of Labor and Statistics said being a paralegal, the average salary range is about $51,740. So you see that having a certification afforded them, on average, a higher salary. Now, I can't say it's a one-to-one type of ratio, that there is some variables that affect it, but my point being is that having a certification can afford you potentially to make more money than someone that is not certified, based on your market, based on the area law that you're working in, and so on and so forth. Having a certification, like I said, you are going to have certain requirements to maintain it, i.e. continuing legal education, or CLE. Excuse me. Surveyed, 70% of firms paid the CLE fees for their paralegals. That means that the paralegal themselves didn't have to actually pay out of their own pocket for attending a webinar or attending a conference. Their employer actually paid for it. 70%. That's almost 3/4 of employers were paying, because an employer sees the benefit. We're going to talk about benefits for the employer side of having and hiring a certified paralegal. Benefit, personal satisfaction. Oh my gosh. This demonstrates, like I said a second ago, you are going above and beyond what is required of you to work as a paralegal. Again, it's voluntary. I didn't have to have any of mine. I'm not, mind you, I have 5 certifications there. I didn't have to have any of them to work. And in fact, a little side story, I didn't get my first certification until I had been doing it 11, 12 years. So I worked for a long time before I started and understood the benefit of being a certified paralegal. And so doing it, I was like, you know what? I went above and beyond what's required of me to work. I studied for this test that was challenging. And I didn't have to have it, but I did it because I can say I succeeded. I passed it. I'm a champion. Woohoo! I am certified. And so doing it, it's that personal satisfaction. That's a major benefit in and of itself. And it shows that you're dedicated to the profession. Oh my gosh. You know, again, going back to the voluntary versus not voluntary, it shows that I'm not saying that those that aren't certified and don't want to get certified, great to you. And it doesn't mean that you're not dedicated to the profession, because there's other ways for you to show dedication to the paralegal profession. But this is a way of saying, hey, I'm dedicated to it because it's voluntary. I spent the money, I spent the time to study for it. I sat for the exam, I passed it. Boom. You know what? I'm 110% invested in my particular career. So for any paralegal managers that are listening to this, any attorneys that are listening to this, why should you hire a certified paralegal versus a non-certified paralegal? As a manager and as someone that has and does interview people for paralegal positions over the many years, certification, it's that way to measure that someone is competent. Just because you have employee A that's gone to this particular paralegal program and graduated and got their diploma or degree, and employee B did the same thing, and you get them in there and you realize one is not as competent as other in the paralegal profession. The education was a little off. Type of instructors, the type of program, so on and so forth. Certification is that standards, the benchmark that says, hey, you have the core competencies in order to work as a paralegal. You have understanding of the law. You have an understanding of judgment analyticability. You know about ethics, and ethics is a huge part of being a paralegal. You know how to do substantive legal tasks as defined by the ABA. So hiring a certified paralegal demonstrates that this person has the basic common competencies in order to perform those substantive tasks. It demonstrates that the paralegal understands ethics and the ramifications of a failure to follow. Why do we care about ethics as paralegals? It's not our bar license, whatever. Well, who do we really work for? We work for the client. We're employed by the lawyer and the law firm or the in-house department, but we're really dedicated to the client. And so having an understanding of the ethics, that the model rules of professional responsibility that our attorneys have to follow, we have to also follow those same rules and ethics in order to make sure that we are doing what we're supposed to do in providing competent and ethical representation to ultimately the person's paying the bill, the client. Demonstrates that the paralegal is competent in the legal process, understands fully what happens from beginning to end in a matter. So from investigation to discovery to final judgment, they know the basics of what happens in a matter. And like I said, because certification is voluntary, it demonstrates, again, that the paralegal's gone above and beyond those minimum standards. Now, as a manager, as someone that interviews, I many times have I looked at a stack of resumes that I've gotten in, and I've looked at this person was certified, this person wasn't, and I'm like, okay, their education looks about the same, their area of expertise looks about the same. I want to interview them both because they both meet the minimum for me to even to interview them. So I get them in the door and I interview them individually. I have, and I kid you not, in the past gotten down to, oh my God, I love both people. I want to hire both. I don't have two positions. I only have one. So what am I going to do? Who do I go for? I've actually used certification as that tipping point, that one little tick that ticks me over because I know that this other person is truly qualified for the position. They can do the job. This one just demonstrated that they've gone that one extra tick, one step above and beyond, and they are truly 122% dedicated to their career. Now, I've also, in that same scenario, had another opening happen, and I went back and immediately hired the other person because I was like, I want this person. I wanted this person too, but I really did it that way first. But so there are employers such as yourselves that look at, you know what, this person has gone above and beyond. So, you know what, I'm going to hire the certified versus the non. Now, you may get someone, and just because they're certified and you interview them, you're like, this person's not going to work, so I'm going to go with the non-certified. Absolutely. But it may be that tipping point that helps you in placing that particular person. So the history of paralegal certification. Why do you even care about when certification starts? Well, it helps to understand because we're going to talk about the differences. There are several different certifications out there national-wise. NALS, the Association for Legal Professionals, has been around since 1929. They were the first legal support profession association that actually came up with a certification. Their first certification was the professional legal secretary position. And that was in 65, mid-60s, was the very first type of legal support certification. And so the advent of the paralegal industry happened in the late 60s and the early 70s. And NALS actually had a legal assistant. At that time, everyone was being called legal assistants, but it had a legal assistant section to their association. And it was individuals that are starting this new job, what we do now, paralegals. And they split off. And NALA was born, and I give you there the very first Facts and Findings magazine from NALA in 1975. They split from NALS, and they started their certification, which was, back then, it was called the Certified Legal Assistant Certification. So NALA started certification. National Federation of Paralegal Associations, NFPA, they started their certification, the PACE registered paralegal, in about 2000. So certification's been around for quite a while. Now also in about 2000, 2004, they came out with the professional paralegal certification. So it's been going on for, 45 years that we've been certified as paralegals. And it's important to understand where we came from in our history. So you're going to identify tests, and I'm kind of doing this out of order because I really wanted to talk about the certifications themselves, but when you decide that you want to set for a certification, first thing you're going to do, and we'll talk about the different exams, you're going to research the certification exam that you want to take. So you're going to find out, what am I going to be tested over? What are the eligibility requirements in order for me to set for the exam? What do I have to do to even apply to set for the exam? I make sure that when you are preparing to even apply for the test, that you get all those documents, your degree, your affidavit from your supervising attorney, whatever the case may be, get all that together and start the application process well in advance of when you really want to take the exam. because you don't want to be trying to get all your documents together 30 days out before you're trying to apply for the test, get, accepted to do the test, pay for it, blah, blah, blah. You really want to focus in on studying for the test. So know what test you're going to do, apply for it, get that out of the way, and then start studying. So preparing for the test. I can't stress this enough. Don't just show up. Just don't go, I can do this test. I've been a paralegal for 15 years. I made that mistake. I failed the ethics portion of my first test. And I'm proud to say that I did, because I went in cocky going, I don't need to study the ethics portion. I got ethics. No, I really didn't. So don't just show up for the test. Prepare for it. Identify what study materials they're telling you to get, the exams. Know the exam that you're going to be tested over. And just remember that all these tests, they have a study guide to purchase and use, but you're not being tested over that study guide. You're being tested over your knowledge. The study guide is just to help guide you on the areas that you need to. You may have to dig a little deeper on the respective area. For those paralegal students, use your textbooks, study materials that you use throughout your program when you go to set for the exam. Those will help you truly as supplemental materials to bone up on particular areas. Look for study groups in your area, and there's a myriad of virtual study groups. NALA, on their Facebook group, there's a certified paralegal exam study group that you can, once you apply for the test and get accepted to set for the exam, you can get in there online and study with others. Paralegal Education Group is a company that offers certification exam review programs. They cost money, but it's an additional way to help prepare for the test. Like I said there, if you've been a practicing paralegal for a number of years and you're going to take it, you're going to have to unlearn what you have learned. All these tests, the national exams, test you over the federal level. So even at the federal level, you have federal local rules that you deal with, and you're not necessarily going to be tested over some of those local federal rules. You're going to be tested over the big main federal rules. And so you're going to have to unlearn. I had to unlearn some things that I'd learned just because of practicing for so many years. So my recommendation to those students that are listening, once you complete a program, look at setting for the exam. Don't wait years to do it. Get out there and get it done, because that knowledge will be fresh in your brain. Like I said, the national exams are based on their federal rules, not the state rules. We'll talk about state level certifications in a minute. And finally, don't panic. Just remember, don't panic. You got this. 82% of an exam, any exam you ever take in your entire life, is mental. The knowledge is there. You can study and know the material, but a lot of it is going in and going, you know what? I can do this. I am going to pass this test. And so just don't panic. Walk in there confident. I can do this. I'm going to pass it. I'm going to be certified. I'm going to be like Carl. I'm going to have a whole bunch of letters behind my name. And know that you can do this. You can succeed. So let's get into the types of paralegal certification. There are 3 national certifications that are offered by examination, where you're actually going to have to apply to set for the exam and take the test. And that's NALA, the NFPA, and then NALS, NALS. There's one certification that's done by education and experience only. There's no exam, but you have to have a minimum of a bachelor's degree and so many years experience in which to even apply for it and prove that you can do it. And then it's the American Alliance of Paralegals, Inc. That designation is the American Alliance Certified Paralegal, or the AACP. That's what I have in my alphabet soup. And currently there's only about 84 that have the AACP, that maintain that AACP. Excuse me. State level certifications, and I'm going to show you a chart here that'll help break it down. But this is a list of, I think that's 18, or you can count it. I can't remember how many different states there are that offer a certification / accreditation. They don't call it certification, they may call it an accreditation. And I'll show you that here in a second. Your respective state, Illinois, has a accreditation program. So this is a comparison chart that I put together of the 3 national exams, so you can kind of see, showing who's the governing organization, when it started, what the actual designation is, and then eligibility requirements and the exam format. So the first 2 in green, that's the CP, which is the certified paralegal, and then the ACP, which is the advanced certified paralegal. This is offered through NALA. The CP is a 2-part exam. There's the knowledge portion. There's about 120 questions, multiple, like I tell my students, multiple guess, multiple choice type questions. It's administered on demand year round, and you have to pass it before you can even set for the second portion, which is the skills portion. And that's a written exam. It's an actual memo. You have to review it and type it all out in a matter of 2 hours. So it's a little challenging, but you can do it. And it's only administered 4 times a year: February, April, July, and October. The ACP, once you get your CP, then you can go and get your what's known as your ACP. And that I'm pointing to up there is my ACP. So it's an assessment component. So it's basically modules that you go through and review, and then you're tested after each module. And then once you successfully complete it, then you get your advanced certified paralegal. My ACP is in discovery. Then in blue are the 2 certifications through NFPA, National Federation of Paralegal Associations. The first one is what's known as the Paralegal Advanced Competency Exam, or the PACE Registered Paralegal, which is what I have. It's strictly multiple choice questions, 200. It's over various areas, and I'll show you the second page to this chart. I couldn't get it on one slide. And then you have what's known as the Paralegal Core Competency Exam, the PCCE Registered Paralegal, or CRP. This is sort of the entry level. It's a little more basic. The Advanced Competency Exam, it's more established, more. You have to have been working as a paralegal for a little while. And then it's not only 125 questions, so it's not quite as extensive. And then in red is NALS, the PP, the Professional Paralegal Exam. It's a 4-part exam. It covers multiple choice questions. It's administered on demand year round. So we'll look at the second portion. So these are the different areas that you have to know for the CP. And basically all of these are testing you over your basic understanding of the legal system, the US legal system. Most of them, in fact, all of them, think test over the civil lit area, but each one then kind of varies in the substantive areas. Not all of them test you over contracts. Not all of them test you over criminal law or estate planning. So it varies. You just have to, depending on the exam that you're going to set for, know and see what you're going to be tested over, so you can make sure you focus in on those respective areas. The PP was the most challenging for me, was because you were tested over 23 different areas of law. So I was tested over admiralty law and maritime law when I lived in Oklahoma. It's a landlocked state. Why do I need to know about maritime law? Well, funny thing is, in the area of Oklahoma, Tulsa was where I used to live. It's on the Arkansas River that connects to the Mississippi River, and it's a navigable waterway. And I just passed the PP at the farm I worked at, and we actually got a case that involved admiralty law. And so the attorney I worked for was like, we just got this case. I know nothing about admiralty law. And I was like, oh, I just passed the PP exam, and I actually have this much knowledge. I have the basic core knowledge of admiralty law. And he's like, good, you're going to teach me about admiralty law. Okay, we're going to do it together. So it helped me as an employee demonstrate that, hey, I have something that none of the other paralegals in the firm had. I also give you here at the bottom the number of active certified individuals. This is data that's relatively available publicly available, so didn't have to dig too far to find this information. But you can see the CP has about 8,500 certified paralegals, active paralegals right now. So the CP is the most recognized throughout the country, or the most people that actually have it. I would say close second, the ACP, because it's part of the CP, people have it as well. But I'd say the second is the RP. About 644 people have the RP. Check my time here.
Hey, Carl, can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
I do have a question
Okay.
that we'd like to kind of address now, I think would be good.
Yeah, perfect.
What are the roundabout costs or fees to take the test? I know they probably vary test to test, and especially once you're going to get into the different states as well, those costs vary. But what are you looking as far as just, what it costs to take it, study materials, things like that?
So I'm going to back up here so we can look at it together. So I'm going to stick with the CP, the RP, and the PP because I took those three, so I know about what I paid for each one of those. They are all about the same. If I remember right, they're about $250 to set for the exam, to take the exam. The study material wise, each one of them, I want to say the study guide was probably about $100 for each one. Then I see the CP, I actually purchased, NALA offers a practice review test that you can take online. So I think that was like $75 or something like that. I paid that. The RP, I went through the Paralegal Education Group, PEG, and did there. And I think that was a couple of $100. So each one, by the time I got materials and stuff like that, I'm probably paying about $500 total investment into actually getting my materials, paying for the test, and taking the test. Now, if you don't pass any of the exams, depending on the exam, like the PP, when I didn't pass the ethics portion, which, that is that's part 3. Each one of those parts, if you don't pass, you have to pay. So I think I paid another $60 or $75 to take just part 3 again. So by the time my PP was about $325 test for me to take it.
So, sorry, let me jump in because now I have a follow-up question. So that part 3, if you did not pass that, so do you start over at part 1 then? Or do you?
No, so you take each one of the parts, part 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's all day test. So if you didn't pass a certain part, so part 3, I didn't pass the first time, I still got to keep my scores for part 1, 2, and 4. I didn't have to retake those. I just had to retake part 3, and I had to pay for retaking that particular part. So that one is a little different than the others. So like the CP, if I hadn't, and I didn't, I did pass the knowledge portion, I'd have to take that again and pay a retake so I could even sit for the skills exam. The RP is just one fatal test. So you don't pass the test the first time, you're just gonna have to pay a retake fee. But none of the tests charge you a whole nother $250 to retake it. There's some semblance of a retake fee in order to take it again. Good question. Thank you, Lori. So state certifications. Now, I've given you, and this is you see it's a 2-pager of a chart, being mindful of time here. So each one of these tests, in some states, you can see here, Florida has 2 different certifications because there's 2 different governing bodies that, offer a certification. Your respective state, Illinois has what's known as the Illinois Accredited Paralegal, the ILAP. And you can Google, I didn't give you guys the links because I hate giving links because sometimes they change. So my recommendation to you is Google Illinois Accredited Paralegal, and you'll find right off the bat the link to the test itself or to the site itself. But for Illinois, you have to meet certain education and experience requirements, and you have to have either gotten your CP through NALA or your RP through NIFPA in order to then pay your fee and then get your ILAP. There's no exam. Your state does not have a certain test that you have to take in addition to taking a national. Now, Florida, the one right above it, Florida Certified Paralegal, FCP, is through the Paralegal Association of Florida, Inc. You have to have your CP through NALA in order to even set for the FCP examination. And that exam covers specifically Florida state laws. So I got to pay the $250, $500 total, whatever, to take my CP. And then I'm going to have to invest in taking the FCP if you want the state level. So each one of these tests, and the reason I give you all these different states, as someone that this happened to, don't think that you're going to live in your state the rest of your life. I thought I'd be in Oklahoma till I died. And 5 years ago, I moved. So I moved with my spouse to here in Las Vegas, Nevada. And so I was glad I had at the time all my certifications, because I was like, okay, no matter what state I land in, if I need to have a state certification, I know I've got it, so I don't have to. But I don't say you need to go out and get and take all the tests and have all the alphabet behind your name. I did it for two reasons. One, it was just a personal goal. I call it collecting my P's. It was like collecting baseball cards. I wanted to have all the certifications, but as an educator, as a paralegal educator, I always had students ask me every semester, well, what's the difference between the tests? Well, I can't tell you without having gone through them what to mentally expect in the test. I can't tell you what test questions I had and what to specifically study for, because then I'd lose my certification. But I can tell you my own personal perspective of each of the exams, and people ask me, well, which one's harder? One's not harder than the other, because they all test me over and test you over the same core competencies. It's how the test is delivered. So you're like any standardized test, you're being tested over your ability to pass that respective test. The common knowledge is about the same. It varies. And it's the same with the state certifications. If you set for a state exam, most of these or some of these are going to have a actual state law specific certification. Another state, Ohio, theirs is the OSBA Certified Paralegals through their state bar association. You have to have certain education experience, but it covers a lot of the same stuff that I'd have to do as a CP or an RP. You're tested over legal procedure, legal ethics, substantive law, legal research and writing, computer knowledge, law office management. A lot of the same stuff you're tested on a national. But if you noticed, I don't have to have my CP or my RP or PP in order to even set for the OSBA Certified Paralegal exam. I just go in and I can just take it. I don't need the others. So depending on where you may be thinking about moving, or your spouse is looking at getting a job somewhere else, I challenge you to investigate your respective state and see if there is. Not every state has a certification. My respective state, Nevada, does not. I would like to change that because it just demonstrates knowledge about Nevada law. So I just challenge you guys, when you're investigating an exam, think about what's your long-term goal. Do I want just the state exam or state certification only? I don't need a national. Or should I go ahead and get the national certification under my belt, one of them at least, just to say I have been certified through a national association accrediting type body agency that has given me this certification. I also give you on this particular chart the number of people that are certified in that respective state. Now, some where you see the N/A, I didn't have that information. It was not readily available on their website. I couldn't find it. It wasn't publicly available. Sometimes some places they like to protect that information, but Florida, the Florida Registered Paralegal, FRP, there's over 4,000 in Florida that have the FRP, which is, I was just like, whoa. North Carolina is another one. I quit counting and they didn't give me a total. It was just pages upon pages, and I got to about 500, and there was still probably another 500 names to go through. It's like, nope, I'm just gonna say 500 plus. There's a lot in North Carolina. So my final thoughts. I know we're getting down to about the 10 minutes before the hour, so I wanted to give us some more free time in order if you had any questions or anything. So final thoughts. What I hope you've learned from listening to me and talking about this is understanding the differences between being certified and calling yourself a certified paralegal and calling yourself a certificated, or I have a certificate in paralegal education. Having a greater respect for the nationally recognized certification. I value each one of those letters. That's dollars, yes, that I pay to have those. It's dollars that my employer pays to help me maintain them, but it's also the personal value that I get out of it. Those letters mean the world to me, and I'd be devastated if I ever lost them. And so I recognize the importance of having a national certification under my belt. Knowledge of the different types of paralegal certification, state versus national. I hope you guys have walked away understanding that there are a lot of different certifications out there, but really at the core, national wise, there's like 4 national certifications. The benefits, I've talked in great detail about the benefits, personal versus employer side of it. So understanding the benefits of being certified is important. And like I said at the beginning, and I'm saying wrapping it up here, is be a champion for certification. I hope you guys walk away from this going, hey, I'm jazzed, Carl, about going and getting my paralegal certification and demonstrating to my employer, demonstrating to my peers, demonstrating to my family that I went above and beyond what's required of me to be a paralegal, and to share that message with the rest of the world, because it's so important. We are living in an era right now of great innovation. The access to justice, and I could talk a whole slew about access to justice. And a lot of states are seeing the importance of utilizing paralegals in some of those roles that can help individuals access justice, you know. And so states like Arizona, Minnesota, they're investigating pilot programs in order to give limited license or limited paralegal practitioner licenses to individuals. Certification, a lot of these programs are looking at national certification as a way to grandfather people in off the bat. If I have my CP in Utah, which Utah has the limited paralegal practitioner program, having my CP and having my RP, or even if I had either one of them, that actually would get me into grandfathering through some of the steps because I have a national certification. So having a national certification, I'm not quite sure if Illinois, Laura, you might be able to speak to this, if Illinois is investigating any type of pilot program for a greater access to justice or not.
I don't know that off the top of my head. I think it would be a great idea. From what you described, that just sounds like it would just be, that's something I would personally have an interest in, and I think it would be a great thing to kind of offer, but I don't know if that's something that's in the works.
Yeah, I hadn't heard anything from Illinois, so I wasn't quite sure if not, but having a certification right now, I'm pretty much set if Nevada was to ever do that, or if I decided to move to Arizona and wanted to do more in the way of helping the public, limited wise, having my national certification to help me go through that program faster is perfect. So just get out there and be a champion for certification. Questions? Any other questions that we have?
We did not have any other questions come through. I kind of jotted down some things I wanted to kind of revisit with you. And some of them are specific to what you've discussed. So, you know, you said you moved from Oklahoma to Nevada. You still maintain your Oklahoma state certification. Is that correct? Or have you?
Oklahoma doesn't have a state certification.
Oh, okay.
So all my certifications are national. So Oklahoma didn't even have it.
Okay.
So I didn't have to worry about it. But if I had a state, say I lived in Illinois and had my ILIP, and I moved to Nevada, I would more than likely maintain it because I, you know, invested in the time and money to do it to begin with. So why not? You know, if I'm able to do it and to maintain it, I would. I didn't have certification through Texas, but I had membership in the Texas State Bar through the attorney that I worked for in Oklahoma because he was Texas Bar licensed. I didn't maintain it when I moved because I'm like, there's no reason to maintain it because I no longer had a Texas supervising attorney
Right,
to
yeah.
maintain it. So just
You may,
depends.
you may not know the answer to this then, but for example, we have an attorney here at my office who is licensed in both Illinois and Iowa.
Okay.
And to keep up his Iowa license, he can use his Illinois CLEs and things like that. Is that type of thing, if I were to ever move from Illinois somewhere else, are they, like the CLEs that I would have where I am, would that still be eligible? And it probably varies state to state, so I don't know if you can even speak to that.
So depending on if you have a state, so let's start with national first. So national certification, excuse me, my CLE, no matter what state I live in, no matter where I'm getting it from, as long as it is an approved entity or vendor that is giving the CLE approved through NALA, NIFPA, NALS, solid. It doesn't matter what state, even if I'm learning state specific, I can still apply it to my CLE and our requirements. State-wise, you're going to have to look at the requirements for that respective state's body. So I'm clicking back here. So let's just say, take for example, Illinois, depending on what Illinois Paralegal Association says in the way of a CLE, if they only mandate Illinois specific areas of law, if you move, you may not be able to maintain it. Just depend, or you may have to go and do webinars of Illinois and maintain it. It's just dependent on the respective governing body that is maintaining. Because you can see here too, some of these certifications are through a state certification. Some are through a state bar. North Carolina State Bar, Ohio State Bar, South Carolina's through the Supreme Court of South Carolina. So it just depends on the respective state. They may have very specific requirements in the way of maintaining the CLE.
Okay. One of my other questions, and this is a question I have, as far as the national certifications go, if you can only do one, how do you choose which one to do? You know, which would be the most, I don't want to say important, but you know, if I can only do one of them, how am I making that decision?
So that is, I love that question because it always, I will tell you, Laura, I get it asked all the time, and it always throws me every time because it is a personal decision. So I always sort of, not to turn it back on the person asking the question, but I always like to say, if you are a believer, meaning you follow some sort of particular religious faith, how did you pick the church that you went to? You kind of you may have shopped around and figured out and talked to other people to go, oh, maybe I'll go try this church. Or finding your spouse, you know, when you were in the dating circle, you know, how did I pick the person that I chose? It's a personal decision because you'll have to look at the area of the country that you're living in. That's the one thing. Certain areas, and it's not hard and fast rules, guys. It's sort of loosey-goosey, but in the South, Oklahoma, the CP is, everybody knows about the CP because NALA's headquarters are in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So the South is heavy with the CP because everybody knows about the CP. In the Northwest, it's heavy in the RP versus the CP, or the PP. It's more recognized there. California, it's kind of the CP. The Midwest, where you guys are at, it's sort of, if I had to like draw a line, it's like CP, RP, none of the above, because a lot of people may not even know about it. You guys are the second in Illinois that have asked me to come speak on certification. And yeah, I'm intrigued how many people don't know about the different certifications in the Midwest. So it's interesting. The Northeast, it's kind of a hodgepodge between the RP and the CP. So depending on where you may be at, where you may be moving to, if you're deciding to move, may mean you may have to do more explaining. So the PP in Tulsa, I had to do a lot of explaining because no one really knew much about it. Everybody knew about the CP. Not many people knew about the PP. Moving out here, pretty much it's the CP, but even the RP, I didn't have to do a lot of explaining. People pretty much knew about it. So it's just dependent on where you're at. And it's a personal decision because like I said, They're pretty much the same in the way of testing you over the core competencies. So it's a matter of, if you're invested in a affiliate of NALA or NIFPA or NALS in your respective area, you may be just driven and looking at that respective exam to take. Otherwise, if you're not active in it, it's a matter of just investigating all of them and talking to someone like me and, hearing what was it like to test and go through those tests.
Right. Okay. We're coming up on just another minute here, so I do want to just wrap it up. I want to say one of the things that I took away from your first presentation on this is to be an advocate for this certification. So that's why I kind of wanted you to come speak again. I think this is, like I said, I'm more interested in this now than I was in the past, and I think the more you research and look into it, the more interesting and available they become. So I want to thank you, Carl, for presenting again.